How can mankind be so foolish? How is it that we can send men to the moon, build computers and other great technologies, and yet we cannot connect the dots between human behavior and disease? Let me give you two reports that have come out in the last 10 days. Both have been widely reported. The first one I'm going to read from the Weather Channel on June the 30th, 2020. The title of the article is "New Strain of Swine Flu Could Be the World's Next Pandemic, Researchers Say." And then they give three bullet points here. The first one is scientists in China say the strain is becoming more common in pigs. Secondarily, it has all the essential hallmarks of a potential pandemic virus. And thirdly, it's not an immediate threat, but something to keep an eye on. The report goes on to say pigs are intermediate hosts for the generation of pandemic influenza, the researchers wrote. In other words, it's an intermediate between birds and humans. Thus, systemic surveillance of influenza virus in pigs is a key measure for pre-warning the emergence of the next pandemic influenza. Pigs are thought to be particularly good mixing vessels for reassortment because they live on farms in proximity to birds, which also carry flu. They're likely to be exposed to other pigs, and they don't get very sick from infection, says Angela Rasmussen, a virologist at Columbia University. She also wrote on her Twitter feed that flu viruses are segmented, meaning their genomes are divided into 8 pieces of RNA. This means that if multiple flu strains infect the same host, they can basically shuffle their genes and form what we call reassortments or new viruses. The second report has also been widely reported. It comes from July the 6th, 2020. This title says, "After COVID-19, China reports 2 bubonic plague cases in Inner Mongolia. Alert sounded." Now remember that it was a bubonic plague that killed a huge percentage of people in Europe. And we normally think of it as just something that, well, a rat has a flea and a flea bites a person and that person gets sick and dies. But it's more than that, apparently, according to this article here. It says, amidst the coronavirus pandemic, China has just sounded the alarm for a possible bubonic plague infection. Health officials warn against eating marmot meat. As per reports, the infection in the two brothers that caught this, was caused by the consumption of marmot meat which had not been prepared properly. Authorities have traced 146 people who had come in contact with the brothers. In other words, there was a chance of it passing from the brothers to these individuals, 146 people who they know that were exposed to the brothers. Authorities have traced these people, and they were isolated, and they are being treated at a local hospital. People have been reportedly warned not to eat marmot meat. So what is the connection here? Pigs, marmot meat, what do they have to do with the whole subject? Well, very simply, the God of creation, the one who inspired the Bible to be written, has warned us against eating certain animals. In Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14, and I've reported on this widely before in these Tomorrow's World videos that have been done, also in 3 programs, actually more than 3 programs. Some of them were done in Canada, some were done here in the United States. But I've warned of eating these meats that the Bible describes as unclean. Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14 tell us that there are certain animals that we should not eat. They're considered unclean. And my friends, why is it that it is always these unclean animals that are connected to these diseases? For example, Ebola is a frightening scourge in Africa, and even over here, we've had a few cases that were transported over here, and there was a great concern over it. But where does it start? Well, they believe that it starts in bats, that is transferred to primates, and then people eat primates, or the bats there in Africa. And so while it is knocked down while it is eradicated temporarily, it keeps coming back because people do the same behavior that caused it in the first place. Sars, which was a big thing back in 2004, came from China, and they believe it came from a wet market. And there's some dispute as to whether the intermediate host was a civet cat or some other animal, but the fact of the matter is that they believe that it originated in the horseshoe bat. It was transferred to an intermediate host, all of which were unclean animals, and then transmitted to humans, and then from human to human. Middle East respiratory syndrome, MERS, also, they believe, started with bats, transferred to camels, an unclean animal, and then to human beings. Marburg disease, which originated in Marburg, Germany, again came from a primate, probably from a bat to a primate. Nipah virus, they know that it came from a bat to a pig to human beings. So here we have swine who are carrying a virus, a new virus that we're concerned about. This bubonic plague coming from marmots in Mongolia, and things that happen on the other side of the world as we are learning can affect us. You know, the fact of the matter is, as long as we keep eating unclean animals, these diseases are going to keep coming back. In 2009, we had the swine flu. Where did it come from? Well, it's believed that it came from a pig or pigs in Mexico, not that far away. So we can blame the Chinese, we can blame others around the world, but the fact of the matter is that while we consume these meats, they have to come from someplace. They come from farms. They come from farms where they have to be then transported to places where they're processed. And in the course of handling these animals, these unclean animals in this way, viruses rise up and they affect people all over the world. In 2018, it is estimated that 50 to 100 million people died. And it all originated from doing something that God said, don't do. This is Gerald Weston for Tomorrow's World. It is July the 9th, 2020. And in spite of all the terrible things that are happening around us, I hope that we keep our chins up, and I hope that you have a very good day.